Imagine your brain. I mean, the actual seat of your consciousness. What if it operates not just like, the most amazing classical computer, but also partly like a cutting-edge quantum machine?
It is a truly mind-bending thought. Really challenges everything we thought we knew about our minds.
Absolutely. And today we're taking a deep dive into this fascinating world where quantum biology meets neuroscience to explore this pretty audacious idea.
It's pretty wild
Yeah,
stuff.
we're drawing from some really intriguing sources today, mostly the work of researcher and author Jay Alfred. His insights, published on places like Medium, they propose that our brains aren't just one type of computer. No, they might be this remarkable classical quantum hybrid.
Hmm.
So our mission today is to really unpack this hypothesis, this idea that your brain's left and right hemispheres process information so differently, fundamentally differently, that they might actually be generating distinct realities.
Wow.
And maybe even more provocatively, that one side, it might just be a biological quantum computer.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how these concepts just completely challenge our traditional understanding. Consciousness, computation, even what it means to be human, really.
Right.
So we won't just look at what the research suggests. We want to dive deep into why these ideas are so important for how we see our own minds and, the incredible potential may be hidden within us.
Okay, so let's get into this core idea then.
Yeah.
Does the brain operate like a computer? For a long time, the general feeling in science was, well, no. People pointed to plasticity, its analog nature, all these seemingly non-computational bits.
Yeah, that was the standard view.
But our sources are suggesting we need to be way more precise. We need to ask, what type of computer are we talking about? And which part of the brain?
Exactly. It's not a simple yes-no anymore.
Not at all.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this distinction between classical and quantum computing, it's not just some technical detail. It's absolutely key here. So, forget just the classical computer's on or off switch, the binary bit. Think of the quantum qubit more like a dimmer switch. It can be on, off, and kind of everything in between at the same time. That's superposition.
Right, that simultaneous state.
And this isn't just a small step up, it's a whole different way of processing. It lets quantum computers tackle problems that classical machines just choke on.
Like what kind of problems?
Well, think simulating incredibly complex molecules or finding subtle patterns hidden in huge amounts of noisy data. Exactly the kind of intuitive leaps we often associate with genius.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. And it's not just theory, right?
No, not purely theoretical. Researchers like Professor Randall O'Reilly at the University of Colorado Boulder and his team, they've found some compelling evidence that different brain regions might actually align with these different computing styles.
So real biological evidence pointing this way.
Their work suggests it, yeah, that our brains might be far more, let's say, technologically advanced and more intricately organized than we used to think.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we need to understand the two different players here, the two sides of the brain. Let's start with the left brain. That's the one we usually think of as, logical, handling language, step-by-step thinking, conscious reasoning.
The familiar workhorse.
Exactly. And our sources highlight its physical structure. It's got a greater density of cells, more gray matter, suggesting it's really focused on processing within specific areas. Right. It's optimized for focused analytical tasks.
And that structure, that architecture, it leads pretty naturally to what's described as the left brain's either-or logic.
Either or.
Yeah. Neurons in key spots like the prefrontal cortex and the basal ganglia, they've been found to operate in basically two states, active or inactive, much like those binary bits in a classical computer.
So like little logic gates.
Pretty much functioning as logic gates, yes. This classical left brain processing, it perfectly fits with dualistic logic. That's the foundation of our analytical thinking. It strictly follows the law of non-contradiction. Something is either A or not A. It can't be both.
Okay.
So, in your left prefrontal cortex, this means clear categories, solving problems step by step, making those definite eater choices, just like a traditional computer processing instructions one after another.
That deterministic step-by-step process.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And what's really compelling is how clearly we apparently see this in brain scans.
The imaging data.
Right. Studies using fMRI show that simple math, like adding and subtracting, lights up specific spots. The left inferior parietal lobe, left precentral gyrus. Even something more complex like multiplication consistently involves the left frontal lobe.
Really pinpointing it.
Yeah. It strongly supports this idea that the left brain handles these conscious verbal computations.
Yeah.
It operates with that precise sequential logic that we can, almost track neuron by neuron.
So this clear alignment with dualistic classical logic in the left hemisphere, it naturally leads to the big question, what about the other side?
Exactly.
If the left brain is so classical, how does the right brain fit in? Especially when we know it does such different things.
And this is where the picture gets, well, really interesting, where physics might meet everyday experience, the right brain. It's often linked with intuition, seeing the big picture, creativity.
Holistic understanding.
Right, and it's described as largely unconscious, processing information in a totally different way, often nonlinear, unlike its logical counterpart. It's the wild card, maybe, the realm of insight.
In this part of the brain, it's said to operate with a both-and, or symmetric logic.
Both and.
Yeah, which is remarkably similar to how a quantum qubit exists in superposition, where A and not A can sort of exist simultaneously.
Okay, hold on. So like a concept existing in multiple, even contradictory states at once.
Exactly, but not as confusion, more like
Yeah.
a richer, more nuanced reality before you focus on one aspect. There was a Chilean psychoanalyst, Ignacio Blanco, who talked about the unconscious having this symmetric logic where categories merge, opposites coexist. And researchers like Julia Bartolotti have shown how this finds compelling support in actual quantum models. It's about holding multiple possibilities, multiple truths at the same time before one reality gets observed or chosen.
And this isn't just psychoanalytic theory, right? There's neuroscience backing this up too.
Well, neuroscientist Petro Gopic offers something that fits perfectly. He described the dream world. Think about dreams
Okay.
as a place where paradox reigns and opposites merge to sameness.
That is a perfect description for the quantum realm, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where contradictory states coexist until you look, makes you think differently about your dream.
It really does.
And think about those mathematical geniuses like Srinivasa Ramanujan. He famously got complex theorems and visions, right? He knew they were true, but struggled to prove them logically. He said they came from a goddess.
Right. The intuitive leap came first.
Or Shakuntala Dey, the human computer. Lightning-fast calculations seemed impossible, but she couldn't explain the steps either. Attribute it to a god or an unconscious process. These aren't just fast calculations. They feel like leaps of intuition, those both-and insights that a purely classical mind, well, it might find them impossible to even conceive, let alone do instantly.
Which strongly suggests, doesn't it, that these deep unconscious processes might be happening in the right brain using exactly these kinds of quantum computations that allows them to solve problems that would just completely stump a classical approach.
So the right brain does the heavy quantum lifting, maybe?
Perhaps, and then the left brain might come in afterwards, do some conscious processing to refine it, structure the insights, maybe even perform error correction, or just translate it into language we can understand.
Like a partnership.
Exactly. A connection that hints at this profound, almost symbiotic difference in how each hemisphere perceives reality, interacts with it, giving us two distinct ways to engage with the world.
Okay, so if we run with this idea, left brain is classical, right brain is quantum. What does that mean for how they work together? How do these fundamentally different systems integrate? Is it just like a handshake? Or is it something way more complex, making our brains like these incredibly advanced supercomputers? Maybe even futuristic ones.
Well, the observation is pretty striking. The basic architecture of the human brain with these distinct left and right processing styles, it looks remarkably similar to how we're designing cutting-edge quantum computers right now.
Really? How so?
Because those machines, they don't only rely on quantum processors, they also need classical processors alongside them to manage the quantum operations, read the results, and perform really vital error corrections. It's a truly hybrid system by design, leveraging the strengths of both ways of computing.
Oh, okay. So you need both. And for any quantum computer, real or biological, there are some basic requirements, right?
Absolutely. Two key conditions have to be met. First, you need quantum coherence.
Coherence,
Meaning those delicate quantum states, the superpositions and entanglements, they have to be maintained for long enough to actually do something, to perform a meaningful computation.
right. They can't just disappear instantly.
Exactly. And second, crucially, you need that classical processor to read the output from the quantum part and then perform any necessary error corrections or translate it into a form you can actually use.
Makes sense. You need both sides working together for the whole thing to be useful and reliable.
Precisely. And our sources suggest both of these critical conditions might actually be fulfilled within the human brain.
Both. Even the coherence part.
Well, Matthew Fisher's model, which we should definitely talk more about, proposes a really compelling, biologically plausible way to maintain that quantum coherence and the need for the classical error correction. We see hints of that even in the work of geniuses like Ramanujan. His insights were instantaneous, intuitive.
Quantum leaps.
Right. But they sometimes needed laborious classical verification by others. Even the most brilliant quantum insights seem to need that final logical check.
That's fascinating. But, okay, the coherence thing. For years, scientists were really skeptical about quantum stuff happening in the brain.
Deeply skeptical.
Because the brain is, well, it's warm, it's wet, it's incredibly noisy electrically and chemically, it's bustling in there.
Not exactly the pristine lab environment you usually need.
Right. Quantum coherence normally needs extreme isolation, ultra-cold temperatures, a perfectly calm setting. The brain seems like the worst place for it.
It seems like a non-starter on the surface.
Oh.
But the sources, particularly Fisher's work, argue that evolution is pretty clever. It may have already cracked this seemingly impossible puzzle.
Oh.
So Matthew Fisher, he's a physicist at UC Santa Barbara. He proposed this really groundbreaking model. He suggests that the nuclear spins in phosphorus atoms could act as qubits.
Phosphorus? Why phosphorus?
Because it's incredibly abundant in the brain. We're talking something like 10 to the power of 23 atoms everywhere.
Wow. Okay, so lots of potential qubits.
Exactly. It identifies a common biological component that could host quantum information. That's the starting point.
But still, the environment. How can these delicate quantum spins stay coherent in that busy, warm, wet brain?
That's the million-dollar question. Fisher argued that they're actually quite well isolated. They have this protective cloud of electrons around them and a weak magnetic field because their spin number is very low.
So they have some natural shielding.
Kind of like nature built its own tiny subatomic shield around these potential qubits, yeah. And remarkably, lab studies have actually confirmed this since then. They've shown that phosphorus atoms shielded by silicon atoms, which have zero spin, can maintain coherence for extended periods.
Okay, so it's possible in the lab under the right conditions.
Yes, and what's even more fascinating is the potential role of something called Posner molecules.
Posner molecule.
Yeah, these are specific clusters. 6 phosphorus atoms and 9 calcium atoms, arranged in a unique structure.
And what's special about that structure?
Fisher argues this specific biological structure acts like a natural, self-assembling protective cage. It provides additional shielding.
Even more protection.
Even more. This structural cage further isolates the nuclear spins of the phosphorus atoms inside them, and this could potentially extend quantum coherence times in the brain, not just for microseconds, but for incredibly long durations.
How long are we talking?
Well, according to Fisher's calculations, potentially hours, maybe even up to a full day.
A day? Seriously? In the brain?
If his model holds, yes. It's a potential game changer for the idea of complex quantum processing in biology. It offers a plausible solution to that warm, wet, noisy problem.
Okay, this Fisher's mechanism, it sounds like it could explain how coherence is possible. But then what? How does a quantum state collapsing you turn into, a thought or an action?
Right. How does the quantum translate back to the classical world we experience?
Yeah.
Fisher theorizes that when these superposed waves eventually collapse, when they're forced to pick a single classical outcome, it's not just an endpoint, it's a trigger.
A trigger for what?
This collapse causes electrons in those phosphorus atoms to react. It subtly changes their chemical properties, and that change initiates the release of neurotransmitters.
So the quantum collapse kicks off a standard brain signal chain.
Exactly. It seems to be the brain's potentially brilliant way of translating a quantum computation into a classical signal. It allows all those bits of information processed in the quantum realm to finally integrate into one cohesive, conscious perception.
So this could be how the brain pulls everything together, all the sensory inputs, memories, into one unified experience.
It could be. It's a potential answer to that long-standing mystery in neuroscience. The binding problem. How does it all come together into your single, coherent reality?
Wow. Okay. So Fisher's model gives us a plausible scientific framework for how quantum coherence might happen in our brains. But here's the really provocative question this raises for me. If our brains can do this, if we have this innate capability, could some people, maybe through ancient practices like meditation, have been instinctively using and enhancing these quantum processes all along? Without knowing the physics, obviously.
That's a fascinating thought, isn't it? And it raises the question, what specific practices might actually allow someone to tap into these processes, to maybe foster deeper insight or awareness?
Yeah, what would that look like?
Well, the sources outline several techniques that seem to align surprisingly well with quantum principles, suggesting maybe an intuitive, unconscious grasp embedded in some meditative traditions.
Like what?
Okay, first, physical and mental isolation. Think about meditators going to quiet places, reducing sensory input, quieting that internal mental noise.
Creating a calm space.
Effectively, yes. They're kind of creating a biological version of the shielded, cold chambers physicists use for quantum experiments. Reducing that external decoherence, the environmental noise that collapses quantum states, might allow those delicate processes to just linger longer in the brain.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
2, reducing and stilling mental verbalizations, actively quieting conscious of verbal thoughts, especially reducing activity in the left cortex, the classical processor,
Why is that important?
because that conscious verbal stream acts like a powerful observer or measurement device inside your head. By reducing that chatter, you minimize the constant measurements that would otherwise quickly collapse fragile quantum superpositions.
Less internal observation, longer coherence. Got it.
3, deconceptualization and deconstruction. Many meditation methods actively discourage rigid thinking, putting things in neat boxes. Those concepts are tied to generating useful information in the verbal areas. But generating useful information from a physics perspective is what collapses quantum wave functions.
So by not constantly labeling and defining everything.
You help maintain the fluid state, the superposition. Think of Zen koans, or practices emphasizing faith over logic. They push you away from that classical defining mode.
Interesting. Okay, number 4.
Making repeated weak measurements. This is a cool one. Instead of one strong immediate observation that instantly collapses a quantum state into a single outcome, a relaxed, non-judgmental meditative state might encourage what physicists call repeated weak measurements.
Weak measurements.
Yeah, each individual look is less accurate. It doesn't fully collapse the state. But by repeating them gently over time, you can still gather information while preserving the quantum coherence for much longer. It's like gentle probing, not a harsh stare.
Huh. Like dipping your toe in instead of jumping in.
Sort of. 5, developing right brain superposed logic. We talked about the right brain using that both and logic. Many meditative traditions actively try to activate that hemisphere, practices focusing on holistic awareness, intuition, nonlinear thought. And brain imaging studies actually do show increased right brain activity and reduced left brain activity during meditation.
So it matches the theory perfectly, fostering quantum-like processing.
Seems to align, yes. 6, using noise to counter unwanted quantum noise. This sounds counterintuitive, but
Using noise to fight noise.
exactly. In a surprising parallel to actual lab research, practices like chanting mantras, rhythmic breathing, they might generate specific frequencies, and these controlled frequencies could potentially tune out or counteract other random, unwanted noise sources within the brain, thereby preserving quantum coherence.
Wow.
It's not just about calming the mind subjectively, it might be about creating a specific resonant environment. We even see something similar in nature. Evolution seems to use controlled noise to protect quantum processes during photosynthesis.
Nature already figured this out. Amazing. Okay, one more.
7, avoiding certain behaviors. This is maybe more practical day to day. The sources suggest that strong negative emotions, anger, lust, greed, jealousy, create a lot of stress and mental fatigue. This generates significant mental noise. So actively avoiding these states helps calm that internal turmoil, enhancing the brain's ability to maintain coherence and fostering a clearer state.
So emotional regulation as quantum maintenance.
I could frame it that way, yeah.
It's just incredible. To think these ancient practices developed over thousands of years might be inadvertently manipulating quantum mechanics inside our own heads. Without any idea about the physics, it really makes you rethink what meditation is, not just spiritual, but maybe deep cognitive engineering.
It's like a powerful perspective.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for us? This whole idea, left brain classical, right brain quantum, it paints such a profound picture of who we are, almost futuristic.
It really does. We're not just classical machines. We might be these walking, talking, quantum classical hybrid systems.
Yeah.
Capable of perceiving reality, interacting with it in ways we're only just starting to grasp.
Yep.
And if these theories hold water, it suggests evolution gave us something truly astonishing. The ability to access and make sense of not just classical reality or our everyday world, but potentially quantum reality itself,
Of directly accessing quantum reality.
It goes beyond just understanding the world around us. It speaks to maybe a deeper, richer kind of perception,
Sure.
potentially unlocking totally new cognitive dimensions.
It definitely hints at a future where quantum neuroscience could unlock human potential in ways we can't even imagine yet. Maybe those superhuman abilities we see in savants and geniuses, the instant insights, the complex calculations without conscious effort. Maybe they're just glimpses of what's possible when the brain's classical side is quieted or bypassed, letting the quantum side really shine through.
It wouldn't be magic. It would be physics, biology, consciousness, all converging in ways we're just starting to figure out.
Right. It's just understanding the operating system.
And think about artificial intelligence. As AI gets smarter and smarter, this perspective offers a fascinating counterpoint, maybe a unique role for human minds. Perhaps our highly developed innate quantum processing gives us an edge. It could allow us to keep pace with, maybe even surpass advanced AI, especially where intuition, parallel processing, or that both-and logic is needed, things AI struggles with currently.
So human intelligence, if we understand and cultivate this quantum aspect, could remain uniquely powerful.
It's a possibility, a future where our own inner technology is key.
Wow. Well, this deep dive has really pushed the boundaries of how we think about our own minds.
Yeah.
Seriously. From the left brain's binary logic to the right brain's both-and possibilities, and exploring how quantum coherence might be enhanced by practices like meditation. The brain is clearly far more mysterious, far more complex, and potentially way more powerful than we usually imagine.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If parts of your brain are already operating like a quantum computer, what incredible hidden potentials are lying dormant inside you, just waiting to be accessed or maybe even intentionally cultivated?
Yeah. We hope this deep dive into Jay Alfred's work on the quantum brain has given all of you listening some truly mind-expanding things to think about and maybe a fresh perspective on your own inner world.
Food for thought, definitely.
Absolutely. And for your final provocative thought to take away, if our brains can tap into quantum reality, what new forms of perception or understanding might we be capable of cultivating? And what does that really mean for our place in the universe, a universe that is, at its very core, fundamentally quantum?